Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Harmony, watching the blue and silver planet grow larger on the main screen. Altair Prime looked peaceful from space, with its 3 moons casting gentle shadows across the surface. The human diplomatic ship moved slowly through the outer atmosphere, following the flight path given by Zephyrian traffic control. "Captain, we're getting the final clearance codes now," said Communications Officer Lisa Harper. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. This was the biggest diplomatic mission humans had ever attempted with the Zephyrians. Jake nodded and looked around the bridge. His crew had been preparing for this moment for months. The Zephyrians were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy, controlling over 300 star systems. If humans could make a trade deal with them, it would change everything for Earth and the colonies. "How are our passengers doing?" Jake asked. "Ambassador Carter is reviewing her notes again," replied Lieutenant Marcus Kane from the security station. "Her daughter Emma is in the observation deck, drawing pictures of the planet. The other families are getting ready for the ceremony." Jake smiled. Emma Carter was 8 years old and had been excited about the trip since they left Earth. She had never seen a Leland world before. Her mother, Ambassador Lisa Carter, had brought her along because the mission was supposed to be completely safe. The Zephyrians had promised full protection for the human delegation. The ship's doctor, Patricia Wells, walked onto the bridge. "Captain, I just finished the final medical checks on everyone. All passengers are healthy and ready. The Zephyrians sent over information about their air composition. It's safe for humans to breathe." "Good work, Doctor," Jake said. He activated the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Morrison speaking to all passengers. We will be landing in 30 minutes. Please gather in the main assembly area with your ceremonial clothes. Remember, this is a historic moment for humanity." The landing went smoothly. The Zephyrian spaceport was massive, with ships from dozens of different species coming and going. The Zephyrians themselves were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. They wore flowing robes in bright colors and moved with grace. High Chancellor Vex Morlian waited at the bottom of the landing ramp. He was the leader of the Zephyrian coalition and looked impressive in his golden robes. Behind him stood 50 other Zephyrian officials, all dressed in their finest clothes. "Welcome to Altair Prime," the Chancellor said in perfect English. His voice was deep and musical. "We are honored to host the first official human diplomatic mission to our world." Ambassador Carter stepped forward, holding Emma's hand. "Thank you, Chancellor. We come in peace and friendship, hoping to build a strong relationship between our peoples." The ceremony began with traditional Zephyrian music. The sounds were strange but beautiful, like wind chimes mixed with singing. Emma clapped her hands and smiled, clearly enjoying the performance. The other human families watched with interest as Zephyrian dancers performed ancient rituals. Captain Morrison stood with his security team, watching the crowd. Everything seemed perfect. The Zephyrians were being friendly and welcoming. The media from both species was recording everything. This would be remembered as the day humans and Zephyrians became allies. Then the explosion started. The first bomb went off near the main platform where the officials were standing. The blast threw people in all directions and filled the air with smoke and screaming. Jake immediately activated his emergency communicator. "All security teams, we are under attack. Protect the civilians." More explosions followed. Jake could see armed Zephyrians running through the crowd, but these were not wearing the official robes. They wore black armor and carried weapons that fired red energy bolts. On their arms were symbols that Jake did not recognize. "This is the Purity Sect," one of the attackers shouted in English. "Death to the alien contamination. Zephyrian blood must remain pure." Marcus Kane and his security team formed a protective circle around the human families. They had energy shields and weapons, but they were outnumbered. The Zephyrian guards were fighting back, but the attackers seemed to know exactly where to strike. Through the smoke and chaos, Jake saw Ambassador Carter trying to protect her daughter. Emma was crying and holding on to her mother's dress. A Zephyrian terrorist was running toward them, his weapon raised. "Look out!" Jake shouted, running toward them. The terrorist stopped and looked directly at Emma. His large black eyes showed no emotion. "The child represents the future mixing of our species," he said in a cold voice. "This cannot be allowed." Before anyone could reach them, the terrorist fired his weapon. The red energy bolt hit Emma in the chest. The little girl fell to the ground, her small body still. Ambassador Carter screamed and dropped to her knees beside her daughter. Emma, wake up." Jake reached them a moment later, but it was too late. Emma's eyes were closed, and she was not breathing. Dr. Wells ran over and checked for vital signs, but she shook her head sadly. The terrorist who had killed Emma was standing over them, looking pleased with himself. "I am Crix Vorthic," he announced loudly. "Let this be a message to all inferior species. Stay away from Zephyrian space, or face the same fate." Marcus Kane shot Crix with a stun weapon, but the damage was already done. The other security officers quickly captured the remaining terrorists. The official Zephyrian guards looked shocked and angry. Chancellor Morlian rushed over to where Ambassador Carter was holding her dead daughter. His face was pale with horror. "Ambassador Carter, I am so sorry. This was not supposed to happen. We will find everyone responsible." Lisa Carter looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. "You promised us safety," she said quietly. "You promised my daughter would be safe." The ceremony was over. The dream of human Zephyrian friendship had died with a small girl who just wanted to see the stars. Jake helped load Emma's body onto the ship while the other families gathered, their belongings in silence as the UHS Harmony lifted off from Altair Prime. Jake looked back at the planet one last time. He had a feeling that this would not be the end of the story. Humans did not forget when their children were murdered. Somewhere back on Earth, people would be making decisions about how to respond. The little girl who had been drawing pictures of alien worlds would never see another sunrise. But her death would change the galaxy in ways that no one could imagine. The peaceful diplomatic mission had become something much darker. Jake Morrison had no idea that he had just witnessed the event that would shatter galactic peace forever. The news of Emma Carter's death reached Earth within 6 hours. President Maria Rodriguez was sitting in her office when Admiral Richard Stone walked in with a grim expression on his face. Behind him came Dr. Patricia Wells, who had returned on the first transport ship from Altair Prime. "Tell me what happened," the president said quietly. Dr. Wells sat down and took a deep breath. "They targeted her specifically, Madam President." The terrorist looked right at Emma and said she represented the mixing of species. Then he killed her in cold blood while her mother watched. President Rodriguez closed her eyes for a moment. She had met Emma Carter before the mission. The little girl had drawn a picture of Earth and Altair Prime holding hands. Now that same child was dead because someone thought humans were not good enough to live near Zephyrians. "What is the Zephyrian government saying?" she asked. Admiral Stone pulled out a datapad. "Chancellor Morlian has arrested the surviving terrorists, but he refuses to hand over Crix Vorthic, the one who killed Emma. He says Zephyrian law does not allow them to give their citizens to alien courts. Even murderers?" "Even murderers." The president stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of New York City. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were just learning about what happened to Emma Carter. She could already imagine their anger. "Admiral, what are our military options?" Admiral Stone hesitated. Officially, very limited. The Zephyrians have over 10,000 warships. Our public fleet number's only about 800. And unofficially? That's a different conversation, Madam President. 3 days later, Ambassador Lisa Carter stood before the Galactic Council on Centauri Station. She wore a black dress and carried a small picture of her daughter. The massive chamber held representatives from over 50 different species, all watching as the grieving mother approached the speaking platform. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice steady despite her pain. 3 days ago, my daughter Emma was murdered by a Zephyrian terrorist. She was 8 years old. She loved to draw pictures and wanted to be a space explorer when she grew up. The chamber was completely silent. Many of the alien delegates had never seen a human show such controlled emotion. "I am not here to ask for war," Lisa continued. "I am here to ask for justice. The Zephyrian government refuses to hand over my daughter's killer. They say their laws are more important than justice for a murdered child." She paused and looked around the chamber. "I wonder how many of you have children. I wonder if you would accept this if it was your child who died." When Ambassador Carter finished speaking, something unexpected happened. Dr. Alex Turner, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, requested permission to address the chamber. He was known as a quiet scientist who rarely spoke at meetings. "Honored delegates," Dr. Turner said as he activated a holographic display. "For the past 50 years, humanity has been monitoring galactic communications for scientific research. We have been listening to your transmissions, studying your languages, and learning about your cultures." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates shouted that this was illegal spying. Dr. Turner waited for them to quiet down. "During this research, we have discovered some interesting things." The holographic display showed documents and recordings. "For example, we know that the Zephyrian Purity sect has been funded by the Vorthan Empire for the past 10 years. We know that the Altarian Republic has been conducting illegal genetic experiments on captured Krellian prisoners. We know that the Trade Federation has been selling weapons to both sides in the Outer Rim War." The chamber fell silent again. This time, the silence was not respectful. It was fearful. "We also know," Dr. Turner continued, "that many of your governments have been discussing the human problem in private. You have been worried that humans are expanding too quickly. Some of you have suggested that humanity should be contained or eliminated before we become a threat." More angry shouting filled the chamber. Dr. Turner showed more evidence. Communications between governments, secret military plans, trade deals that violated galactic law. The humans had been watching and listening to everything. "We have kept this information private because we believed in galactic peace," Dr. Turner said. "But the murder of an innocent human child has changed our perspective. We no longer trust that this council values justice over politics." Back on Earth, President Rodriguez called an emergency meeting with her top advisors. They gathered in a secure room deep underground where no alien surveillance could reach them. "The Zephyrians have 48 hours to hand over Emma's killers," she announced. "If they refuse, we move to Phase 2. General Frank Butler, head of Earth's Secret Military Projects, activated a holographic map of the galaxy. "All stealth ships are in position, Madam President. The Zephyrians have no idea we have been placing assets in their territory for the past 20 years. What about their fleet? Our intelligence suggests they will mobilize everything they have over 10,000 ships, just like Admiral Stone said. But they have never seen our real capabilities." Colonel Sam Brooks stepped forward. "The first target should be their military communications center on Zephyr Beta. If we can knock out their command structure, the rest will be easier." President Rodriguez nodded. "What about civilian casualties?" "Minimal, Madam President. Our weapons are designed to disable, not destroy. We learned from studying every military conflict in galactic history. We know how to win wars without becoming monsters. The president looked around the room at her advisors. These were people who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Not because they wanted war, but because they knew that someday humanity might need to defend itself against a galaxy that saw them as inferior. "Gentlemen, ladies," she said finally, "for 50 years we have pretended to be a small, harmless species. We have hidden our true strength because we wanted to be friends with our galactic neighbors. But they have shown us that friendship means nothing when your child is bleeding on alien soil." She activated a communication link to Admiral Stone. "Admiral, begin Phase 2 preparations. If the Zephyrians want to see what humans are really capable of, we will show them." "Yes, Madam President. All ships are standing by." As the meeting ended, President Rodriguez thought about Emma Carter's drawing. The little girl had imagined Earth and Altair Prime as friends. Instead, her death was about to teach the galaxy a lesson they would never forget. The Zephyrians thought they were dealing with a weak species that could be bullied and dismissed. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing. Now it was time to act. The 48-hour deadline passed without any response from the Zephyrian government. Chancellor Morlian had gone on galactic television to announce that the Zephyrian coalition would never bow to human threats. He called humanity a minor species that needed to learn their place in the galaxy. "We have 10,000 warships," he declared. "The humans have barely 800. If they want war, we will give them war." General Thane Corvex, the Zephyrian military commander, was even more direct. "We will crush these upstart humans and show the galaxy what happens when inferior species challenge their betters. The death of one human child will seem like nothing compared to what we will do to Earth." President Rodriguez watched the broadcast from her command center deep beneath the Pentagon. Around her, screens showed the positions of ships across the galaxy. Red dots marked Zephyrian forces. Blue dots showed human ships. But there were many more blue dots than anyone in the galaxy expected. "Admiral Stone," she said quietly, "begin Operation Reckoning." The first strike came without warning. The Zephyrian fleet was gathering near their military base on Rigel 7 when space itself seemed to bend around them. Ships appeared from nowhere, as if they had been invisible. The Zephyrians had never seen technology like this before. Captain Carol Price commanded the UHS Vengeance, a massive ship that was 3 times larger than any Zephyrian vessel. Her ship alone carried more firepower than an entire Zephyrian battle group. But the real shock came when she opened fire. Instead of the explosive energy weapons that most species used, the Vengeance fired beams of pure light that simply made Zephyrian ships disappear. The weapons worked by breaking apart the atomic bonds that held matter together. Ships did not explode. They just stopped existing. "This is Captain Price to all Zephyrian vessels," she broadcast. "Surrender now and your crews will not be harmed. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed." The Zephyrian commander, Admiral Krek Vorthok, was the brother of the terrorist who had killed Emma Carter. He refused to surrender and ordered his fleet to attack. It was a mistake he would not live to regret. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. The human ships moved through space like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons struck with perfect accuracy from distances that should have been impossible. When it was over, 800 Zephyrian ships had been destroyed, and 2,000 more had surrendered. The human fleet had not lost a single ship. Of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light. Other species who had been planning to support the Zephyrians suddenly became very quiet. The Vorthan Empire, which had been funding the Purity sect, immediately announced that they wanted to remain neutral in the conflict, But the humans were not finished. Colonel Sam Brooks led a ground invasion of Zephyr Beta, the planet where the Zephyrian military headquarters was located. Instead of using bombs and explosives, the human forces used weapons that simply made enemy soldiers fall asleep. Zephyrian. Defenders found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see. Human soldiers wore armor that bent light around them, making them invisible. They moved through Zephyrian defenses without being detected and captured key positions without firing. A shot. "We could have killed all of you," Colonel Brooks told the captured Zephyrian officers. "But we are not like you. We do not murder the innocent. We came here for justice, not revenge." The most shocking moment came when the human fleet arrived. At Altair Prime itself, the Zephyrians expected a massive bombardment that would destroy their capital city. Instead, Captain Lisa Harper, who had been promoted after the first battle, sent a simple message to the planet below. "Citizens of Altair Prime," she announced, "we are not here to harm you. We are here to arrest the terrorist Crix Vorthik and bring him to justice for the murder of Emma Carter. Surrender him peacefully, and no one will be hurt." The Zephyrian military tried to use the civilian population as shields, hiding their weapons in schools and hospitals. But the humans had technology that could see through any material. They knew exactly where every weapon was hidden. Engineer Marcus Kane demonstrated human scanning technology by producing a perfect three-dimensional map of the entire planet. Every building, every tunnel, every hiding place was visible to the human computers. There was nowhere for the terrorists to hide. "We have been watching your world for 20 years, Kane announced. "We know where your leaders sleep. We know where your weapons are stored. We know everything." The siege of Altair Prime lasted 3 days. Human ships surrounded the planet, while invisible soldiers moved through the cities. They did not harm civilians, but they captured every government official and military officer they could find. On the 3rd day, Chancellor Morlian finally agreed to surrender Crix Vorthik. The terrorist was brought out in chains, still defiant even as he was loaded, onto a human transport ship. "You think you have won," Crix said to the human guards. "But you have only started a war that will consume the galaxy. Every species will unite against you." Captain Jake Morrison, who had been promoted to admiral after the events at Altair Prime, looked down at the terrorist who had killed Emma Carter. "You murdered a child," he said quietly. "You thought humans were too weak to respond. You were wrong." The war was not over, but the outcome was already clear. The Zephyrian coalition had lost most of their fleet in the first week of fighting. Other species that had been secretly planning to attack human colonies suddenly found themselves reconsidering their plans. The humans had revealed technology that was decades ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Ships that could become invisible, weapons that could destroy matter itself, soldiers who could walk through walls, computer systems that could predict enemy movements before they happened. But perhaps the most frightening thing was not the technology. It was the restraint. The humans could have destroyed entire planets, but they chose not to. They could have killed millions of Zephyrians, but they focused only on military targets. They fought with precision and mercy that no other species had ever shown. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the lights of Altair Prime, now under human occupation. Emma Carter had been dead for 2 weeks, but her death had changed the galaxy forever. The little girl who had wanted to be a space explorer had become something more important. She had become the reason why humanity finally showed the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The war would continue, but everyone already knew how it would end. The humans had been pretending to be weak for 50 years. Now the pretense was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. The war ended 6 months after it began. The Zephyrian coalition surrendered completely after losing 90% of their military forces. Other species that had been secretly planning to attack human colonies quickly changed their minds. The galaxy had seen what happened to those who threatened humanity. The trial of Krixvorthik took place on Centauri Station, broadcast live to every world in the galaxy. Judge Helen Morrison presided over the proceedings with representatives from dozens of species watching as evidence was presented. Krixvorthik showed no remorse for killing Emma Carter. He stood in the defendant's chair and declared that he was proud of what he had done. The human child represented the contamination of pure Zephyrian blood, he said. I would kill her again if I could. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat in the front row, listening to the terrorist describe her daughter's murder. She had spent months preparing for this moment, knowing that she would have to face the man who had destroyed her life. Your Honor, she said, when called to testify, my daughter Emma was excited about visiting Altair Prime. She had drawn pictures of making friends with Zephyrian children. She believed that all people in the galaxy could be friends, no matter what they looked like. The courtroom was silent as Lisa continued. The defendant did not just kill my daughter. He killed the hope of peaceful cooperation between our species. He showed the galaxy that some people believe murder is acceptable if the victim is different from them. The trial revealed evidence that shocked the galactic community. The Purity sect had been planning to kill human children for years, believing that eliminating the next generation would prevent humans from spreading across the galaxy. They had been funded by multiple governments who feared human expansion. Dr. Alex Turner presented communication records showing that the Vorthan Empire had paid for the weapons used in the attack. The Altarian Republic had provided training facilities for the terrorists. Even some members of the Galactic Council had known about the plan and done nothing to stop it. This was not a random act of violence, Dr. Turner explained to the court. This was a coordinated effort by multiple species to eliminate humanity through the murder of our children. The evidence was overwhelming. Krixvorthik was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But the real punishment came for the governments that had supported him. President Rodriguez announced that humanity would no longer participate in the existing galactic government. The current system failed to protect an innocent child, she declared. It failed to deliver justice when that child was murdered. It failed to prevent the conspiracy that led to her death. Therefore, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council and announces the formation of a new government. The Terran hegemony was born from the ashes of the old system. Unlike the Galactic Council, which was based on equal representation for all species, the hegemony was built around human leadership. Other species could join, but they would follow human rules and human values. We do not seek to rule over you, President Rodriguez explained to the galaxy. We seek to protect you from yourselves. The murder of Emma Carter proved that the galaxy needs someone strong enough to enforce justice and prevent future tragedies. Many species immediately requested to join the hegemony. The Krellians, who had been victims of illegal experiments, were among the first. The Outer Rim colonies, which had been fighting a civil war for decades, asked for human peacekeepers to end their conflict. Even some Zephyrians requested membership. Chancellor Morlian, who had been removed from power after the surrender, was replaced by a new government that wanted to rebuild relationships with humanity. We have seen what happens when we choose hatred over cooperation, said the new Zephyrian leader, High Chancellor Vex Karian. We do not want to repeat the mistakes that led to this war. The Emma Carter Memorial Station became the new capital of the hegemony. Built in the space between Earth and Altair Prime, it was a massive structure that could house representatives from every species in the galaxy. At its center stood a statue of a small human girl reaching toward the stars. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the station's defenses. He had been promoted to Supreme Admiral after the war, responsible for keeping peace throughout human space. His flagship, the UHS Guardian, was twice the size of any other ship in the galaxy. The memorial station serves as a reminder, he told his officers during a briefing. It reminds us why we fight, not for conquest or revenge, but to protect the innocent. Every species that joins the hegemony pledges to defend children, no matter what species they belong to. The new government worked differently than the old Galactic Council. Instead of endless debates and political compromises, the hegemony made decisions quickly and enforced them with overwhelming force. Pirates who had terrorized trade routes for decades were eliminated within months. Corrupt governments were replaced with fair leaders. Wars between species were ended before they could begin. But the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed humanity. No longer were humans seen as a minor species that could be ignored or bullied. They were recognized as the dominant power in the galaxy, capable of destroying any enemy, but choosing instead to protect the weak. 5 years after Emma Carter's death, her mother stood before the memorial statue on the station that bore her daughter's name. Lisa Carter had been elected as the first Secretary General of the hegemony, responsible for managing relationships between species. "I never wanted this," she said to Admiral Morrison, who had come to visit the memorial. "I never wanted my daughters' death to start a war." "But it did start something else," Morrison replied. "It started a new era of galactic peace. Your daughter's death showed the galaxy that humanity will not tolerate the murder of innocents. Every child in the galaxy is safer because of what happened to Emma." Lisa looked up at the statue of her daughter. The little girl's stone face was turned toward the stars, just as Emma had always dreamed of exploring space. "Do you think she would be proud of what we built?" Morrison considered the question carefully. "I think she would be proud that no other child will die the way she did." The galaxy learned that killing a human child brings consequences beyond imagination. The memorial station's communication system activated, carrying a message that played every hour across the galaxy. It was a recording of Emma Carter's voice, made during the trip to Altair Prime. "I want to be friends with everyone in the galaxy," the little girl's voice said. "I think all people are good inside, even if they look different from me." The message ended with the official warning that had become famous throughout the galaxy. The death of one human child brought down an empire. Consider carefully what the death of many might bring. Admiral Morrison smiled as he listened to Emma's voice. The little girl who had wanted to explore the stars had done something even more important. She had made the galaxy a safer place for all children, everywhere.